Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to be installing Vnish on an S19J Pro. That's today's example. But you can put these on an S19K, S21, S21 Pro, L7, so various Bitmain miners. And this increases your efficiency, it increases your hash rate in a lot of situations. You also control the fan speeds. It has various, great features that are a lot better than the standard Bitmain firmware. So today's video, we're going to be talking about that, downloading the firmware, installing the firmware, and going through various options. So if you think that's interesting, you know what to do. Hit like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and go to cryptollc.org if you want to get yourself some miners, buy some S19, some 21s, some L7s, whatever you're looking for, we have all of that. And also, if you want to build a farm, we can help you set one up on your property, or you can jump in with us in our North Dakota site. And before we get started, Bitcoin saves your wealth, and Vnish is going to help you do that. Vnish is going to increase your hash rate, increase your efficiency, so that's a great way to go. But don't forget that Bitcoin saves your wealth, and Jesus Christ saves your soul. All right, let's go. So, S19J Pro. So we have a standard Bitmain firmware installed on this miner. You can see the date of the firmware, December 26, 2022, S19J Pro. This is a Bitmain and miner standard firmware. We go to settings, so blank. So the first thing I want to tell you is when you're installing firmware, sometimes if the firmware is too new, and what I mean by new is it's like 2023, 2024 firmware, a lot of times you have to actually go back and install an earlier version of the firmware because it might be impossible to install Vnish. Because the newer version of the firmwares, if you get an error in Vnish for installing the firmware, that most likely means that your firmware, the original Bitmain firmware, is too new. You need to go back. The way you do that is you download this, you see SD cards, files for all models, toolkit, all models and so on. But when you download these, you'll see the SD card folder, and in there you'll be able to find the firmware you need. Those are the old school firmwares that you need to install first. But before you do that, right, you want to just run the Vnish firmware and see if it actually goes through. That's what we're going to do right now. So I already downloaded these. They're open here. And you can see here, HashCore Toolkit. You can open that up. You're going to open up the program. It's already open, by the way, so I'm going to open it up here. So this is what you're going to use to install the firmware onto the miner. So we're going to find our IP address, which is up here, right? This is the IP address of the miner. Ends in 50.11. That's what we need to look at, 50.11. Go back here, you can create a new group, which basically new group means a range of IPs. So if all of your miners are located on 50.1, .2, .3, .4, .5, and so on, if that's the range, then you're going to type in the range over here. So 192.168.50, and then from 1 to 255 and so on. But I already have that loaded up, so we're on 50. I'm going to go to 50 over here. You see 50 right here? See that 50.0 up until 255, so 50.255. We're going to open up that group here. When I open it up, it's going to have all the miners that are on this network here, right, on the 50 network. And you're going to see all of them here. And here you can filter out. I already installed Vnish on basically most of them. But you can filter out your miners with, let's say, the model of the miner, the firmware, and so on. So if I go to firmware, and then I go to this one right here, this is probably the Bitmain original firmware. I click on that. See, it filters everything out, and it's going to give me the miner that does not have Vnish on it. And as it turns out, it is exactly the miner I'm looking for, 50.11. You guys see 50.11 up here. So that matches. This is stock. Also, it says stock right there, stock. So once we selected it, by the way, you can select multiple items at the same time. At the bottom, you're going to have this window come up. So you're going to click on commands. And then here you can update the firmware, restore to like the original Bitmain firmware, or you can install the firmware. And since we are installing from stock, right, we're installing over the stock Bitmain firmware, then we're going to go to install firmware. We're going to click on that. Here it's going to tell us which directory is it located in, what type of version we want to install. We're going to be installing the 1.2.6-RC2. Also the threads, you don't have to worry about that. And then model detection, you don't have to worry about that. It's going to be automatically detected. It's very rare when you want to force a certain firmware on because maybe you have some kind of weird control board and the Vnish doesn't know what miner that is, so you might want to go to manual mode. But you're going to keep it at automatic because this is just a regular miner here. And you're going to type in your folder location, like your initialization, I could say, for like a folder, which is CLLC. So here, firmware directory, firmwares, it's already picked. I'll show you guys where that is. So if I go to my extracted folder, right, I extracted it to Vnish 11/28/2024, and then in here, HashCore Toolkit, and then here you have firmwares. You see that? This is where all the firmwares are. So you're going to point that folder, click this button, select, and point it to what I just showed you, that firmware folder. And then type in CLLC, and that is because we have a, I guess I'll call it like an identifier. You see how the file starts with CLLC? And that's what you're going to plug in there, CLLC. All right, we're all good to go. And then we're going to click on Install Firmware. Install one device. Yes, we are. Okay, there it goes. We're going to have this operation button show up here at the top. You click on that, and you can see the status of that installation. It's going to wait for that. It's pretty fast, you know, actually very fast, like 20 seconds, 30 seconds, it should be done. And you can run this on multiple miners at the same time. So basically you can have like a batch of 100 miners and you want to install on all of them. Once it's done, it's going to say successfully completed. By the way, if you get an error when you have that old, the new firmware from Bitmain on the miner, up here where it says success, it's going to say error. And if you click on it, it's going to say like error 0 something something something. Usually that's an SD card, right? You need to install the SD card firmware because that original Bitmain firmware is too new, and you need to downgrade to an old Bitmain firmware, which then Vnish can install over. Now that that's done, let's refresh this page. It should be to Vnish, and here we are. So now we are in Vnish. You're gonna go to unlock. Password is admin, lowercase. We are logged in. So now we are logged in. You'll see Crypto LLC right there, top left corner. That's us. That's we're working as a partnership with Vnish, providing them all the data, such as miners, you know, having issues with like power supplies, control boards, maybe some compatibility issues, maybe some kind of, you know, this and that and all that stuff. So we help them create great firmwares. So in return, we partnered up with them. So Crypto LLC, if you want to get one of the newest firmwares from Vnish, one of the best firmwares from Vnish, then make sure when you install your firmware, it says Crypto LLC in the top left corner. All right, so let's go to mining. We're going to plug in our data since we are blank. I already have that data saved over here. That's the pool. I'm going to plug that in. And then the information here, plug that in over here. Click save, apply. So then now it's going to start mining automatically, but we're not done yet. This is an S19J Pro. So we know on an S19J Pro, the best settings that you want to set is you want to set the fan speed to 55. I mean the target temp for the chip to 55. The reason for that is because you get the best efficiency here. This is where if outside temps are like 40 Fahrenheit and you set this to 55 and you are on low power mode, your efficiency is going to be 23. It's going to be just like a K. So we set it to 55, then we change this to one fan. The reason for that is because if one of your fans goes down, let's say, you know, fan, you know, number 3 or 4 or 1 or 2, one of them goes down, you don't want the whole miner to stop mining, right? You want the miner to continue to mine, even though you have one down fan, because it's probably still going to be fine, right? Your chips are not going to overheat, especially if you're in low power mode. You can have one fan down and you'll still be fine. So we change that to 1, because the only reason we want the miner to shut down is if it's the miner is hitting our target, you know, overheating temperature, right? If it hits that overheat temperature, then we want it to shut down, not when it loses a fan. After that, we're going to go to performance. So this is where we set what performance we want. If you disable the preset, it's just going to mine at standard Bitmain speeds, right? Which is going to be about like 100 terahash. We're going to change this to low power mode. So low power mode is, or the lowest of the lowest low power mode is 1740 watts at 65 terahash. And by the way, these are not accurate, right? These are not accurate. This is just like a ballpark figure here. It's not 65, actually, it's 67. And it's not 1740. I think it's like 1650 or something like that. It's like 1650 if I remember correctly. And the reason how, you know, the reason why we know that is because we tested it 18 miners on PDUs. So we know exactly how much wattage the PDU is consuming. And we have old 18 miners running, and then we measured what the average hash rate is and what the average watt is. That's where we get the 23 watts terahash from, because we actually tested it at various temperatures, ambient temperatures outside, and at various speeds. You know, we tested all of these. We tested 65, 70, 76, 80, 83, 87, 92, and so on, all the way up to, I think 110 is the maximum we tested it at. So we have all that data, and the best one to go with is this one right here. You can get 23. Even on some miners, you even get less than 23. You'll get like 22.5. Okay, we set that. Now let's go to advanced. In advanced, we're gonna set a couple of settings here, right? One is quiet mode. Quiet mode means that if your internet goes down for whatever reason and your farm has zero internet, your miners will then automatically switch into prevent the miner from overheating mode, which means the fan speeds will spin up to like 100% because it's thinking something's going on and wants to protect itself, so it goes to 100%. But the thing is, if something is going on, like you lost internet, your miner is not mining. So why would you want the miner to go to 100% fan speed? It's just going to make a lot of noise for no reason. So what you do is you tell the miner, no, don't do that. Just go to 50% if you lost the internet, it stopped mining, whatever happened, go to 50%. And this works great. This is really, really nice because then your miner, your mining facility is not going insane with all that noise. So we want to set that to 50% quiet mode. Then we want to go to skip broken temperature sensors, turn that on. The reason why we turn that on is because there are 4 temperature sensors on each board. And if one of those temperature sensors has an issue, right, it broke because it got old or whatever happened, you don't want the whole mining rig to stop working because that's silly. There are 4 temperature sensors on each of those hash boards. So if you lost one of those temperature sensors, why would you want the whole entire miner to shut down? That doesn't make any sense. And from our experience, it makes 0 sense, right? So you're gonna turn that on, skip them, right? You lost one, oh well, it doesn't matter, right? You have another 4 times 2 other boards, so that's 16 plus 3 more, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's still got 19 temperature sensors left. So we always turn this on and it works great. So turn that on. Other things like quick start, we haven't played with that. We don't really recommend it because the miner starts mining pretty fast anyway. Really no point in quick start. Resume mining after reboot, I guess depends if you want that on or not. Downscale, preset on failure. Again, I guess if you're overclocking a lot and then you're having issues with the temperatures and overclock, maybe you want to downscale on that. But otherwise, this is the typical settings we set up for it. And then we click save. And since I'm changing something like a temperature sensor broken button here, it's going to require a total restart of the mining process for the miner. So that's why it's saying apply, restart mining. So it's going to restart it. Don't worry about this other stuff. You don't need this. By the way, this is where you can change what your maximum temperature you want. So you can say, hey, chip critical temperature. So when the miner hits 90 Celsius on any of the hash boards, then it'll turn down mining, right? The mining will stop. So if you want to change that, you can. 90 is fine, right? We don't see an issue with 90. But if you want to be, I don't know, for whatever reason, maybe you have some weird setup in your garage or on your mining farm, and maybe you have some, I don't know what reason it would be, but there's no issue changing this, right? You can make this less. You can make it, actually you can make it more, by the way. You can make it 93 and really start, going to that maximum before you start frying chips, but we wouldn't do that. But if you want to go extra safe and go to like 88, 85, you can. So this is where you can change it. And then let's see what else we got. Oh, presets. So you can set presets here, and presets right here, allow auto switch presets, is where you tell the miner, hey, I want you to hold a certain temperature on the chips. I want you to hold a certain hash rate. But if the chip temperatures are getting too hot, then I want you to lower the preset. I want you to mine slower. This is what this comes in, auto switching presets. Let me show you how that works here. You turn this on, and then you go over here and you say, don't raise presets above, and then you can change it to, like, let's say you want to mine at 110 terahash. So don't raise presets above 110. So it'll never mine above 110. But then you tell it also that the preset starting point should be, whatever it is, let's say 110, but don't raise above 110. So basically what happens is this: You set it to 110. So let's say outside temperatures are very cold, right? It's freezing, it's snowing, and your target temperature for the chips is this 55 right here, right? And so it's running at 55, and then your chip temperature is going up and up and up. If your tip temperature is higher than this number right here, which is currently set to 75, and your fan speeds are 100%, which means that your miner cannot cool itself less than 75 on the chip. Your miner's having a hard time doing this, right? The fans are at 100% fan speed. Your chips are at 75. It can't handle it. It's getting hotter and hotter outside. At this point, what's going to happen is if you're using auto presets, it's going to lower the preset down on one notch. Meaning that if you are at 110, it'll automatically stop mining. It'll switch to this preset, 104. It'll start mining again. And then the same thing will happen. It'll check this. Now, how often does it check this? It goes over here and it checks at whatever number you set it here, which is 5 minutes, 1 minute to 10 minutes. 5 minutes is fine. You can leave it at 5. And you can also change this. You can say, you know what? I'm going to tolerate 85, and then I'm going to tolerate this at 80. So what you're telling the miner is, hey, if if the chip temp is higher than 85 and the fan speed's at 100%, lower the preset. But then you also tell the miner, if the chip temp is lower than 80, right? It's lower than 80, and the fan speeds are less than 100, then pick up the preset, right? So same thing in reverse. Let's say it's really hot outside and now it's getting cool, right? The temperatures are dropping. And you are mining at, let's say, 2700 watts right here, 96 terahash, right? You're mining at this preset. But then it got 10 degrees cooler outside. So now your chip temperature is not 85, right? Your chip temperature, or 83 or whatever, 82. Now your chip temperature is 78, right? It's below this value. It's 78, and your fan speeds are like at 80%, something like that. At that point, what it's going to say is like, oh, okay, the miner is doing fine. Let's go up a preset. So now it's going to jump up from that preset of 96. It'll go to 100, and then the same thing, 5 minutes, it'll do the 5-minute check. If all these I would say booleans, I call them booleans, but in programming you get for true or false statements. So in this logic here, if the logic checks out, if the logic makes sense, the program will pick up the preset again and again and again, but it'll never go up higher than your maximum, which right here, this is don't raise preset above, right? It'll never go above your maximum. So this is where you set your maximum, right? 110, let's say, like that. And that's it. And that's how that works. So in nighttime, if let's say you're out in Texas, so at nighttime, you might come back up to the 110, right? Because everything's a lot cooler. But then in the daytime, it's 90 degrees outside, and your miner can't handle that. So in the daytime, instead of straining the miner, your miner's actually not running at 110, but maybe it's running at 96 just to keep itself cool. And then again, same thing. Nighttime comes around, goes back up to 110. So that's how it fluctuates. It's a really, really nice feature. Works great. We use it. But then again, for these S19J Pros, we just set them to low power mode, 1740, 65 terahash there, and we keep it like that. All right, so that's how that works. And then, oh, by the way, so minimum fan duty right here. This is where you can tell the miner, how slow do you want the fan speed to run. And you might be wondering, why would anyone have a 0 here, right? Why would anyone have a 0 here? The reason for that is because in some situations, like really, really cold places, like North Dakota, right, where we were building our farm, in that cold environment, if you are in low power mode, your fan speeds are literally 5%. It's like 5%. They're barely spinning, right? Because your hash rate is 65, right? Your hash rate is 65. By the way, it's tuning here. Your hash rate is 65. And then also outside temperatures is like minus 20 Fahrenheit. Your fan speeds drop to like 0. Okay, so that's where you can change that. You can tell the miner, hey, I want you to run at 0% if possible, if you actually need that. So that's what that does. All right, and then also over here, I forgot to mention all this over here. So this is just general information here. You got your hash rate, temperature. This is temperature on the chips. So you can see 47, 45, 45. It's tuning right now, which means that it's figuring out how to run the chips. What's the best speed to run those individual chips at. And I can show you here what that looks like. If I go to performance and I scroll down here, you'll see all three boards, 1, 2, 3, and you're gonna see these numbers here. This is like the hash rate of the chips. It's a giga-hashes, and you have all these chips. And see how it's tuning them. So basically these are running slow, so it's gonna probably decrease the hash rate, maybe give it more voltage on the boards, or just decrease the hash rate here. And then these yellow ones are, they still have a little bit of issue. So red is like, hey, we need to work on this. Yellow is, oh, we're almost there. And then white is, these are running great. So it's going to figure out the best voltage to give to the three hash boards, and then figure out which one of these chips to slow down, which ones to pick up. And then that'll give you the best hash rate that you can get on that hash board. So these hash boards are all going to be different, and see, it's going to be tuning them all. Once tuning is done, you see this button over here. Well, not a button, just text here. See that text over here? So that's your auto tuning. See how it's spinning around? It's auto tuning. Also, by the way, you'll have your miner here, S19J Pro. You'll have your version of firmware, 1.2.6, release candidate number 2. And then you'll have other data like your fans here. This fan was showing error just now. Sometimes it does that if it's auto tuning, but we'll see. We'll see if this goes away. Sometimes it does that. But you can see the fans are like barely spinning at 44%. They're not even 70 or 80 or 100%. So it's nice and cool outside. Plus we're doing low power mode, so that's probably what this is going on here. This should fix itself. But you know, you can see your pool data here, right? Your account name here, or pool account here, and then your pool data here. Also your hash rate, you know, overtime, temperature overtime, performance, you know, errors, your power. This is wrong, by the way. This is never correct. So you don't need to pay attention to that. The best way to figure out what your power draw is to get a like that clamp meter thing, right? You can clamp right onto the copper in your panel. You want to clamp onto that, and that's the best way to check. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. Just other data you can look around, like your PSU version here. This is the E version. Also your average here. Obviously it's auto tuning, so this is wrong, but it's already showing me 26.5, which is a lot better than the standard, which is 30. And you know, and that's pretty much it. So if you guys are looking to run your miners and get the best efficiency, get that nice auto switching preset, which really helps a lot. Also, all those other features I talked about, which just blows away Bitmain firmware. By the way, Vnish is really stable. It handles different, you know, setups. Like you know, you can mix things around. You can like use a control board from a different miner and plug it into this miner, you know, and so on. So it's great because Vnish doesn't care about that stuff. And you can run like an S19 control board or S19J control board. You can swap things around. You can plug in some other power supply. You know, Vnish doesn't care. It'll make it run. It'll run great. So those are all the benefits of running Vnish, you know, on top of everything else that I mentioned. So make sure you guys, you know, run this firmware. It's great. It's wonderful. We use it on L7s as well. Really great. You know, if you're not into Bitcoin, you're into Dogecoin or something else. So all, you know, those options are there for you. And then make sure that you guys are running the firmware you downloaded from our YouTube description page. And then you'll know for sure if you're running the correct firmware by checking this top left corner where it says Crypto LLC. All right, well, that's going to be it for this video. Hope you guys like it. Until next time, bye-bye.